Hello everyone and welcome to Universal Woo Woo. I'm Joanne Bennett.
And I'm Bains. And this is the show where we discuss how situations and things affect your life, your world, and your universe.
Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of Universal Woo Woo. I'm Joanne Bennett.
And I'm Bains. And thanks for tuning in. And just so you know, this is a show where we talk about the events and situations that affect your life, your world, and your universe.
And some of the subjects we're going to be covering in some of these episodes are meditation, what our higher self is, what it means to be awake, hypnotherapy, nutrition with different recipes, and lots more.
Now, as this is our first show, let us tell you a little bit about ourselves. I'm gonna start by telling you a little bit about a brief history of myself, so you know what's behind the personality talking to you at this moment. And I was born in Costa Rica and grew up there for the first 11 years of my life. And during that time, I actually grew up in just right next to the rainforest. I was practically National Geographic material, guys. Barefoot, shorts, out in the woods, out in the jungle, out in the backwoods, and things were very slow. And when I say out in the backwoods, I mean out in the backwoods. I didn't see my first car until I was 7. So that's an indicator. Everything was about the wild, everything was about being in nature. That's how my life started. And at the age of 11, I moved to the United States. Oh, what a contrast. No, by that time I had seen cars. I'd been out to the city and all of that. So I was aware of all those things. But when I moved to the United States, I moved to New York City, pretty much the fastest paced place in the country and one of the fastest paced places in the world, from a place where time is not of any essence. Everybody has a schedule, a routine. Grandma woke up, she would make breakfast. My grandfather was a cacao farmer, and that's how he supported his family and supported helping to raise his grandchildren as well, along with my grandmother. My grandmother was also a true shaman. I learned about plants and healing from my grandmother. And I grew up with all of that as just a normal part of my childhood. And from there, I went to New York City. Now I had Spanish as my first language. I spoke Spanish and I spoke English, but I had an accent. And we all know how cruel children can be if you speak a little bit different, you're trying to figure out what life is like. They smell blood in the water. So it was very, very rough the first few years for my sister and I. My sister and I came here at the same time. She's 1 year older than I am. To make matters worse, I was really looking forward to coming to the United States and living with my parents. And it turned out that my parents were our first nightmare. My parents were extremely abusive, and my years in as a child in my parents' home was a total hell. I left pretty traumatic. I left the house of my home at 18. Pretty traumatic, but it's not a sob story because I've worked on myself and got rid of all of those traumatic experiences, situations, and abuses. But I didn't do it right away. So my awakening to this reality and what happens here occurred during my divorce, because I had a family, I had a good job, I had everything that you would feel would make everybody happy, anybody happy. Everything they said you need to be happy. Hey, go to school, get an education, get a great job, get a family, contribute to society, and you'll be happy because you'll be doing your part to keep a greater society going, and you'll be happy because you'll be a contributor. Well, I did everything that they said, including religion, and none of it made me happy. None of it made me happy. And as a matter of fact, it shielded the torture that was going on inside. Because you can only have that so-called success happening out there. And after a while, it can only tap down what's really going on for a short period of time before you explode, which is what happened to me. And I got divorced, and I realized, I said, you know, what I've been doing here on this planet, this is not what I'm here to do. There's got to be something else. Now, I had no clue what that was, but I just innately knew there's got to be something else. And that's when the answers started to come. I went back to my roots of working with plants and healing, like I did with my grandmother. She taught me. I went back to really finding out about myself from a perspective of within, and not from what I was taught in school, what I was taught in church, what I was taught in society, but completely looking at it from a different perspective. Because once I turned my eye away, well, you know, I had the great job, that didn't work. Turned my eyes away from that. I had a great family. That didn't make me happy. And it's okay to say that. It's not your family's fault. It was things that I was carrying. It was not my family's, it was things I was carrying. None of that made me happy. None of that made me happy. So when I turned my attention away from all of that, all of a sudden, the things that were always there, that I was never focused on, started to come into view. And I started to see a different way of being and a different way of living life. And it was more about me taking care of what's going on inside. Because I'll give you a secret. For some of you, it's not a secret. What you've got going on in here builds whatever you've got going on out in your world. No matter how you slice and dice it. Everything is created from mind. My mind, your mind, Joanne's mind, everyone's mind. Don't let anybody tell you differently. And what's going on in your mind, you're going to build and you're going to create a life according to what's going on in there. Whether it's great, good, bad, ugly, messed up, effed up, that's what you're going to have coming out. Because that's what you got going on in your mind. And all those things contribute to what your life looks like, to what's created, and to what you even attract. So the long and the short of it is I woke up and I started really working on myself and going and keeping the things that were great from my previous life, because not everything is bad. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You take the things that you had that were working against you and you keep the things that are good. And I went on with my life. And then finally one day I met this lovely lady here, and we're now working together. And I can tell you, it's great to have a partner that understands. They don't have to know everything, but understands what you're about and where you're going and what you want to become. So that you learn more about things such as these as the different shows go on. I know this is long-winded. Please forgive me. Joanne, tell us your story.
Well, thank you. And just in case any of you are wondering that my eyes were drifting off just then, it was because there's an ant on the camera. Just didn't go across it, but it's been circling around on the camera. So anyway, yes, my story, very different. As you can probably hear, I'm not from here. I'm from London, England, and I've been in America for 10 years. But let's go back a little bit from childhood. Was being at school, I knew that, you know, I was a little bit different to all the other kids, and I could never pay attention in school. It bored me. Grew up with a one-parent family, a mum that was very strong, lived with my mum and grandmother with one older brother, and just grew up, you know, we struggled a bit, you know, as I say, my mum worked 2 jobs to kind of support both of us at the time, and struggled through my school years and teenage years. Always kind of been interested in the spiritual side of things, and I've always kind of had that in my life, although I kind of ignored it and didn't really know what it was. But there's always been people in my life, kind of close people, that have kind of been in spiritual path. And I really didn't understand it until later on in life. So yeah, kind of first jobs, and always been interested in music. I had a career back in England as a professional singer, and then I discovered Indian head massage, and I took a course on that and got my qualification to do that in England. And from there, I found that it wasn't really just the Indian head massage that I was doing. I had, from the kind of results that I had and the feedback from my customers, was that, you know, this was more than Indian head massage. It was some kind of healing. It was a release for them. People that had never had problems sleeping was sleeping, and headaches were gone. And so I thought, wow, this may be something. And I completely ignored all those signs and continued doing that part-time with my main job doing singing, like for weddings and corporate events. And that was kind of my passion. And then moving forward a bit, I moved to America, met my husband at the time, and we moved here from England. When we first got married, he came to England, then we moved here. And I opened a bakery, a successful bakery, and had that for 3 years and learned a lot. That really taught me a lot of interaction with customers, and, you know, who have now become great friends, and been really supportive throughout, you know, the whole 3 years, because there was kind of some health issues. In 2017, my daughter was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome and was in a coma for 4 weeks in hospital for a year. During that time, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer. So, you know, it has been a little bit of a battle health-wise, but strength, courage and determination has definitely brought us both through the other side, and we're doing wonderful now. And it wasn't until that my real awakening happened. All these signs, as I said earlier, throughout my life had been knocking on, and I just ignored it. But it wasn't until I was going through chemotherapy, and I just came back from a chemotherapy session, and I felt absolutely dreadful, and I basically wanted to die. I wanted to end it. I didn't want to live anymore like this. You know, I'm young. I'm not supposed to be getting cancer and die. That only happens to old people. And I remember being in the bath one day and just really just being so angry at myself, at the world. Why is this happening to me? Why me, playing the victim? And I kind of screamed at my higher self, you know, if you get me through this and cure me of cancer, then I will not ignore these signs anymore. Do what I'm supposed to be put on this planet to do, and help, you know, heal people, help other people. And that's really when, you know, I had my awakening. And I really think that happens a lot. I think you have to kind of hit rock bottom, and you have to go through that. You have to go through a terrible disease, a tragedy, a death in the family, a car crash, something like that. I think what I've heard, a lot of people that have become awake have kind of been through something traumatic like that to really be able to wake up to, you know.
Yeah, I think that happens for a lot of us because we're pretty hard-headed.
Yeah.
You know, we are. And it's sort of a shock that we need. And as you listen to us, you know, you'll hear me say, well, we planned this before we came here. Now, we don't remember because it's a part of the deal. It's hard to remember because, and also our minds are dedicated to what is going on in the now and what needs to happen. So we don't remember things in the past or things that happened before we don this particular body, or things that happen in other incarnations, as they call it. But yeah.
So that was kind of like, you know, my real awakening. And then, you know, I discovered, you know, I got through that. I got well, and I still had the bakery, which at the time was causing a lot of stress for me because, you know, it was successful, but we wasn't where we should have been. And, you know, it was just too much stress on me. And I think that caused a lot of this to start with. Me getting sick was because I was there for like some days, 15 hours a day. And it was non-stop, you know, I was so determined. But I don't regret it, obviously. But I think, you know, me being that determined, having the courage and the strength to get through this, the other side, has made me more determined to want to empower other people, you know. And I decided to give up the bakery, get rid of that stress. And I met this wonderful man. Who, again, you know, it does make such a difference when you are with someone that totally understands and doesn't think that you're some kind of weirdo. You know, because some people, you know, you can light an incense stick and they think there's something wrong with you, or you're like, cuckoo. But, you know, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey so far, and one that's definitely, we've got a long way to go. We've got work to do, and, you know, we want to share that with you guys, our journey, and help you start your journey maybe, or continue your journey.
Well, yeah, that's to me is the best thing, because community is important so that we don't feel, or you don't feel alone.
Definitely.
It's very important. So it's much more important for us to put this kind of information out, have this kind of a show, as you will see in the future, so that you know that you're not alone and that you're not going about following your passion. Because when you follow your passion, often other people are not going to, a lot of people are not going to be supportive of that. And so, wait a minute, I'm not happy in doing what I'm doing, and you're trying to be happy doing something that you want to do? No. We have to stay in the same boat. And sometimes when you wake up and you start following your passion, you run into that. But you have to still go forward. You have to still go forward, because there is so much magnificence. There's so much waiting for you when you do that. And there's a saying that goes, fortune follows the bold. So you have to be bold in being who you came here to be, because everything is going to try to pull you away from that. But when you step out, you'll find also that there's so much help that comes in. Person you never knew, could never have expected, shows up in your life. Resources that you had no idea would come start showing up in your life. So there's a lot of assistance there for you once you step in. It'll come from places you could have never imagined.
And people that you haven't heard of from years show up, even with a little snippet of the information or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're more aware of it and you're more open to it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people drop off as well.
Yeah, they do, but that's okay because they served their part.
Yeah, exactly.
And you step into a new beginning and a new situation, so that requires different kinds of paradigms, ideas, and people, and they come as you step into that.
Yeah. Well, that's a little bit about us.
Yeah.
And just while we're here, I want to introduce you to the show's mascot, which is Peaches. And the next show is going to be about arachnophobia and my absolute fear of spiders. Here's Peaches. And she's my pet tarantula. So we're going to be talking about that on the next show. So make sure you tuned in.
She's doubling as the show's mascot and Joanne's pet tarantula. Very interesting. We're really going to talk about of course, the physical side of tarantulas, but also the spiritual, or some may say metaphysical side too, which is never spoken about.
Yeah. And by the way, I haven't held her yet. I'm absolutely terrified of her. But we'll get into that on the next.
You're giving up too much good stuff. So, on this first show, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to share with the audience?
So for this first show, I want to bring up a subject that's very close to me, as I said earlier, being a cancer survivor and kind of making it my mission to empower other goddesses. And can't stress this enough, to make sure that you get checked, have your pap smear regularly. Can't stress that enough. I know it's horrible, I know it's uncomfortable for a few minutes, but it's totally worth it because things like that can be prevented if they're caught early enough. So there's me ranting just there. So for this very first show, we are going to start with women's health and self-care. Self-care of the yoni space. Why the yoni space? Because it is the portal of life and everything on this planet started from there. Are you aware of what's going on down there? It seems that the only time that we pay any attention is when we have a hot date and we're getting a Brazilian wax, when we're having sex, when we're giving birth, and when we're having our moon cycle. So we're going to start with the self-care right there. And I'm going to introduce you to a practice that I do, and it is yoni practice. And in case any of you haven't seen one before, this is a yoni egg. And what is a yoni, you might ask? A yoni is Sanskrit word for female genitalia or vagina. It actually means sacred space. And what is a yoni egg? A yoni egg is a crystal semi-precious stone that has been carved into an egg shape. So some of the benefits of yoni practice is it can help with your moon cycle and make it lighter. It can help with physical and emotional trauma. And it can also help with pelvic floor muscles. So great for women that have had children.
Yeah.
Now, yoni practice has been around for 5,000 plus years in India and China palaces, used by royalty to empower their divine femininity. So it is really an important and sacred thing to do for yourself and self-care. Very important tool for self-love also. So if you're interested in starting your own yoni practice, then in the link below in the description, there's an in-depth video that I've done which can help you. And I'm also available for coaching if you need more.
And I'd like to add, you know, as the man on the show, as a male on the show, look, general health for everyone should be everyone's concern. Women's health of all kinds should be of utmost concern. Why do I care? Well, I'm with a woman, right? First of all. Number two, I have a mother, and her health, mental, physical, and emotional, was very important. Okay, because that also affects you when you're in utero. So I was in a womb and I came out of a yoni. That's all I need to know to have full concern. And studies have shown if we are healthier, if we are taken care of, if we spend more time on ourselves instead of outsourcing our health to an industry. It's not, your health should never be an industry. If you take that into your own hands and into your own self, you're going to be much better off for it. Now, I know, as you said, not much attention is paid down there. It also goes for us men too. We only time we pay any attention to it is when we need to use it directly. Right? We need to use it directly. And I remember we went to up to LA and did an expo, a spiritual expo. And all of that. And there wasn't anything there
about women's
to talk
health,
about that women's health. Nothing to talk about the yoni sacred space. That should be a big subject. It should have its own category up there.
Yeah.
Nothing. You know what we found? There was a booth, and it was like, not even a 4x4 corner. And it had the label of women's health, and not one thing in there was anything that was remotely relevant. We were both kind of a little shocked.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the subject, the community at large is completely missing in action. And it's up to us to bring this to the forefront.
Exactly. It's so hush-hush, and everyone doesn't want to talk about it.
And if they do, and if there is talk about it, it's in a healthcare professional's office, and their agenda is to sell you medication, not to get you better or well. It's to treat you so you come back for more treatments. So click on that link below, watch that video Joanne has worked to put together, and you can start your yoni practice just from that. But if you need more and you want more information, whatever it is, there's more for you. If you want to go that extra mile and get a little bit of coaching or extra advice, go for it. She's available for that as well. But you can start that practice on your own. It's amazing because these stones or these gemstones also carry energy. Some people, it depends on your sensitivity. Some people can feel the energy, and you work with your intention along with the stones. And there's so much more. I know Joanne mentioned a few things, benefits that you can get from working with it. She goes into depth in the video.
Yeah, about what the stones, what stones you use, and what the benefits are.
Such an essential practice. Such an essential practice. And starting at the portal of life,
just giving it attention is everything.
Starting there, giving it attention. You can release so many things from down there. So many. But I'm not going to steal your thunder, babe. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I personally think this is so important. And no, I don't have a yoni practice. But I support Joanne in her yoni practice. That's my role. So I think that's it for the show. Thank you for tuning in. And Joanne, do you have anything else to add before we?
Yeah. So if anyone has any ideas of what you want us to discuss, or any topics that are really close to your heart that you'd like to hear more information about, then just stick them in the comments below and we'll take a look at them for you.
All right. And until the next show, remember to keep working on, working within.